roof of what they call the Centennial cells. And it looks like it might just be the lower part of another building, or it might have just been a single-story building, but it looks like it was solitary confinement for Civil War prisoners. So that's kind of cool.
It's a really old building.
Yes, it's a very old building. Now, they haven't done much with it. At this point, you can see it, but you can't access it in any way. And with the pandemic, they really haven't done much more with it than that. Also, in 1954, there was a huge riot in the prison.
Yes.
And right. And in that time, they were bringing in like highway patrol troopers from Kansas City and St. Louis and National Guardsmen to try to help bring this thing down. And meanwhile, there were 2,500 prisoners on the loose inside the walls. Although a curious thing is they found out that most of the African-American inmates, they didn't participate. They stayed in their cells. In fact, a school teacher who taught, people to read and whatnot, well, a couple of students smuggled him into their cells and kept him there overnight so that he didn't get injured.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
That prisoner code of ethics.
Right.
Sometimes.
Right. And he hadn't done anything to anybody, so they didn't see why he should get hurt because he wasn't part of the system keeping them down,
Right.
And I don't mean to say that I'm totally with the prisoners on this. I'm just saying that's the way they would have seen it. Is the man's keeping them down. This guy didn't have anything to do with it. He was actually trying to better their world and improve them for when they got out.
Sure.
Which ideally is what prison should do.
Ideally.
Anyway, long story short, there was an inmate killed there because he basically told on the other inmates in death row. And
he was a snitch.
Yeah. And
everybody knows the snitches
just get stitches. Yep. So that's kind of the story of the Missouri State Penitentiary. That's its history. And with all of that history and all of that, it has to be haunted.
Of course, there has to be some kind of paranormal stuff going on.
Exactly.
And that's where our good friend over at the Missouri State Penitentiary, Melinda, came in to help us out. Melanie. Now you've got me messing up her name. That's right, Melanie.
Melanie Benz. Yes. Now, the most active place is Building 4, or what they call A Hall. Cell 36 is probably the most haunted. People describe a feeling of weight there, like their body is heavy, like their feet get heavy, and they have just their whole body feels heavy. There's many EVPs that have been recorded in that cell, as well as phantom images. And when I say phantom images, if I took a picture of you and Krista,
right,
and then when I looked at the picture,
there'd be somebody,
there'd be
with us,
right, that was not here, right. Well, I want to make sure the listeners know too.
Gotcha. Sorry.
And if this sound gets on, apparently, my older two children are tickling the youngest child, which is what all that laughing is. That's not
spiritual activity. That's just
well, it's high spirits, but it's not. But I'm not sure that counts as spiritual activity.
Not of the paranormal variety.
Complicated.
So yeah, and also there's orbs, which orbs to me are meaningless, but a lot of people are impressed by them. I'm not. But there's a lot of orbs seen in pictures taken in this cell. As well as full-bodied apparitions, there's mists, there's shadow people. All of that is in building 4 or A Hall, and a lot of that is concentrated in Cell 36. Although all of the cells have different things that happen there. Now, something else people experience there are phantom touches. And in fact, Melanie has a story, and I just think it's the greatest story. She'd only been there a couple years at that point. She wasn't even a tour guide at that point. She was just an assistant. So she was in a hall. She was talking to a couple of guests. And as she's standing there, she feels like something grab a hold of her back pocket and yank. And the way she describes it, it was like someone hooked a hook to her back pocket, and the other end of the hook was attached to a car, and then they drove the car away. It was that rough. And it scared her so much she was in tears. It scared the visitors so much they were in tears.
Wow.
So many tears.
And from that day to this, she has never worn anything with back pockets to work ever again.
Gotta push that off my checklist. No wearing pockets in haunted places.
Well, anyway, she was talking to one of the former guards about the experience, because a lot of the tour guides there are former guards. And he's like, he kind of laughed, and he's like, back in the day, they would grab your pockets like that and yank to claim you.
What do you mean, claim you?
Like you were gonna be their person. Yes. One of those situations.
Now, the gas chamber, which people can still go in to visit, many report a sadness that permeates the building, like just walking in, you will get sad.
Right.
There are also tons of EVPs. In fact, Melanie got a very clear male voice saying, "Get out of here." This is where there's mist, there's physical touches. And then also in the gas chamber, now back when they used to do executions in there, the way a gas chamber works is there's this pool of acid, and they would take these 3 pills of stuff and throw it in the acid, which would make poison gas. So when they would drop the pills into the acid, they would bang on this metal partition 3 times. This bang, 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 to let the inmate know, hey, the mist is up, so if you want to take a deep breath, get a lungful, and go now, this is good, it's a good thing to do. Or they could try to hold their breath for as long as they wanted or whatever. Well, one night they're doing a tour, and as they're leaving the gas chamber in that area, they're locking up. Well, they hear from inside, bang, bang, bang. And so, of course, Melanie and this police officer that's with them for safety, they think, we've locked somebody in. So they go in, they search the building, they don't find anybody. They search behind the building, they don't find anybody. There's nobody in there. So what made the banging? Probably a spirit.
Alrighty.
And there's physical apparitions of guards. There's all sorts of things that have happened there or that they see. For example, like I said, the hospital no longer stands, but there was an inmate there for the longest time named Jack. And Jack was employed in the radiology department. And Jack's job was effectively to go to the prison to get an inmate, take him to the hospital, give him an x-ray, take him back to the prison and get the next guy. And so Jack is walking back and forth all day. Well, Jack is a ghost that people see there regularly. They just see Jack walking from here to there. He's what they call a residual haunting, because he doesn't interact with you. They'll just see him walking here or walking there. And the thing is, Jack didn't even die there. He was eventually paroled and moved away. Died years later. So, but Jack's spirit can still be seen. Now, people talk about the stone tape theory, and this place is built with limestone, on limestone, and the whole city of Jefferson City is like on a big limestone rock, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what creates residual hauntings right there. So overall, that is the story of the Missouri State Penitentiary.
A heck of a place.
Yes, and
beautiful architecture.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we didn't go over that, but it really was built. It's really a beautiful stone building for the most part, and an entire amazing structure. So I know when you talked to Melanie that she said that not only do they have the ghost tours, but they also have just historical tours and a lot of history there and stuff as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a place that started in a time when, like, if a prisoner spoke to a guard, he would be tied to a pole, given 100 lashes, and then put in a dungeon for however long the guard felt like it. And if a guard didn't like the way a guy looked, they could punish him for really no reason.
I don't like how you look. I'm gonna beat you.
Right, absolutely.
That is awful.
That is awful, yeah. And a place where at one point the windows were so covered with fly specks that it was like black paint. To a place where in the 1960s and 70s, you know, it had running water. It was, I won't say it was a nice place, but they'd done everything they could to modernize it and, you know, apply a different, kinder, more humane set of rules. So, yeah, no, I mean, 168 years covers a wide frame of time. So it's certainly some interesting history and definitely worth checking out. And, you know, Melanie says, please ask for her. She does a great tour. So I'm not even going to go to summarize this just because to me, it's obvious it's haunted. You can't argue that. If it's not haunted, what made the bangings? If there was nobody in the building, what made the bangings? What grabbed a hold of Melanie's pocket and yanked?
Well, and just overall, if you have any faith at all in places holding spiritual energy, whether you believe in hauntings or not, this is the kind of place that, you know, obviously, if nothing else, is just holding energy from all of the people who did live and pass and even die in this structure and in this area. So for sure, if some place is going to be haunted, this is one of the places that is, you know, going to be it.
Exactly. So I want to say thank you to our listeners. We couldn't do what we do without you. Thank you very much. Also want to say thanks to Bill Barrett, who does our music. If you are looking for your original music for a project, he's the guy to go to. It's Bill Barrett, BEHRENDT, at sbcglobal.net. You also want to say thanks to Paige Elmore, who has her own podcast, Reverie True Crime. And if you like true crime, certainly give it a listen.
Thank you, Paige.
But she's also addicted to Canva, and thanks to that, we have a logo. So thank you very much, Paige. Also to Aaron Gnerk, who has the Big Dumb Fun Show here in Kansas City and does some local promotion for us. So thank you very much, Aaron. Also, I'll tell you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, we are plot_family, or you can Twitter Laura at famplotmomlaura, I believe. And then there's Crystalline, who's F Crystalline on Twitter, or on Instagram, she is Family Plot Christacat, or you can follow me, Boogeyman KC. Both will post stuff relevant to the podcast from time to time. You can also follow Boogeyman KC on Pinterest and see our board. Then you can also join our group on Facebook, the Family Plot Podcast group. There's plenty of people in there for sharing things and hanging out. I want to say a big thanks to Missouri State Penitentiary and Melanie Benz for providing so much historical and haunting information.
Absolutely.
And join us next week for our show, because we're deep in spooky season now.
We are.
On Aleister Crowley.
And don't forget, we're going to be guest appearing